Had a crazy week of sports, of course, as you know. And I just want to get right into it. In the UFC, not UFC, excuse me, in the Bellator PFL League, you had Francis Ngannou's return to the ring. He easily beat, whoever the dude is. I don't know who that guy is, but billed as the great heavyweight fight. Not very great. And once again, I will say this, and I've been saying it for years, and people just want to argue about it, and there's just no argument to be had. You literally can't make an argument. Um, as far as promotions go, right? There's the UFC, and then everyone else underneath them. There is no competition. Most of the fighters in other promotions, very few of them can compete in the UFC. That's how big the talent gap is. Um, and most people know that, right? I mean, that's why the ones who are ambitious and want to, um, and they're fighters with ambition, when they get the chance, and there's not many of them who do get the chance, they jump to the UFC. They know that's where the best fighters is. But I don't think there's been a legitimate challenge to the UFC promotion probably since Pride Fighting. Um, Pride Fighting, it's been gone for, I don't even know, probably close to 20 years or more. And I mean, there's guys none of these guys actually are around anymore, right? You had the biggest name of all those guys, or the two biggest names that came out there was Anderson Silva and Vanderlei Silva. Those are by far the two biggest names. Um, you did get Shogun, he came out of there. You got Notario, he came out of there. And I feel like I'm missing one or two. Oh, you had heavyweight, you had Heath Herring come out. And he actually, towards the end of his UFC run, he was looking pretty good. I'm not exactly sure why the UFC cut bait with him, because he was starting to look good. But oh yeah, they also had Rampage Jackson. But here's the thing: Rampage Jackson never did anything. Vanderlei Silva didn't do much. He did make a run there towards the end of his time with the UFC, but he didn't do much. The matter of fact, the easiest guy out of all those guys who did something was Anderson Silva, champion, one of the greatest of all time, Hall of Famer. And that's the way it is. Most of these guys, WEC, Bellator, most of these guys leave those promotions and um, they can't win. They just can't win at the highest level. They're whether they admit it to themselves or not, they're fighting in a land of amateur fighting, and then boom, you fight the best. You're finally fighting the best of the best. And those guys just fail most of the time. There is, like I said, an obvious talent gap, but it's also the fact that when you're not used to fighting the best, you really don't train, like, you don't take training serious. And when you're on top of the world, what could you possibly do to get better? That's like looking back with Rampage Jackson, right? You look at Jackson. Oh, by the way, Mirko Cro Cop, that was one of the names I forgot. Cro Cop did decent in the UFC. I think they left on good terms, I believe. But Rampage Jackson beat up on those Chinese or little Japanese Chinese guys for 15 years or whatever it was, and he was like the king of the mountain or whatever. Obviously, but as soon as he came back in, to America, UFC, he couldn't win fights. And then so that's basically it. And I suspect that'll be the same thing for a long time. Um, and just I'll give you another great example of this. um, you had all these UFC guys that get old at the end of their career, they retire, right? What do 99% of them do? Well, UFC cuts them. They're no longer winning fights. There's no reason to keep them around. You can only have so many guys on the roster and pay them anyway. So these guys won't take the hint and retire like Ryan Bader or some of these guys. And what do? They land in these other promotions, and usually within one or two fights, they're the champion. And I mean, they're not even competitive fights. They just absolutely smash the best guys of the other promotion. That just gives you another example of how much how much of a talent gap there is through the UFC and everyone else underneath them. It's not close. Remember, Bellator's in its second um, essential bankruptcy. And they merged with the PFL or buyout or whatever, and they've already been canceling events because they can't sell tickets. So the PFL and Bellator are about to be out of business. I think the one championship is probably the best to watch, and I think it's only good because you get to watch kickboxing. Like, you wouldn't be able to watch kickboxing if it wasn't for the one championship. But even the one championship, you read in newspapers now, right? Print paper, newspaper, right? It sounds like there's a lot of financial issues happening there. They've had to cancel some events or move them around and so on and so forth. So that's really all I can think of there. And then you had boxing. You had Silva. I don't like you saying Silva. You had Tim Tszyu come back from his Fedorov fight that he lost, and he's fighting some Russian guy. I have no idea how to say the guy's name, but once again, a lot of people just overlooking um, the Russian. And I specifically said I assumed Tim would win myself. I thought, but I also pointed out that this Russian guy, good jab, good power, and he's a high volume puncher. So it's like the best of all worlds, right? High volume puncher, good jab, good power. That's a handful for anybody, because as I've been saying over the years, and I've never been wrong about this, if you have a guy, regardless of where he is on the skill level part, or the talent scale, if you will, right? If As long as you have a guy who IQ wise kind of understands distance, and he has a great jab, a jab that just never stops working. He's constantly pumping it. He's constantly setting his combinations up with it, two, threes, and fours and fives. And then a lot of times those guys don't have much power. This guy has good punching power. So what I'm saying is those guys are always a hard outing. They're tough. They're tough for even the best. And sometimes those guys are so good, and they're such hard workers. Sometimes they come out on top and beat the best guy. Is The question is, after Tim Tszyu gets knocked down 4 times in this fight, basically 5 times. The corner throws in the towel eventually. Um, but I mean, Tim didn't look like he had any idea how to tie people up, um, or just survive. He's tough. He keeps getting up, but he just has no concept of surviving. Like, he survived the second round, which was almost stopped, and then we get to the third round, and he immediately just starts coming forward, trying to attack the guy. The proper thing would have been was just survive round 3 and get your legs back underneath you. You look at the Russians fighter who took some hard punches from Tim in those exchanges. Actually, I think there was one time Tim might have stunned him for a moment. He had these big old red knuckle imprints right here on the center of his head, like literally right here. So it's not like, Tim wasn't doing anything, not doing anything to him or whatever. I know a lot of people are like, oh, this is the end of this or that. And it might be. I don't think Tim Tszyu is over. He's got to rebuild. A lot of people were questioning his skill level. Well, that's hard for me to believe that it's a skill issue per se. I think he needs to get better, obviously. But remember, just one fight ago, Fedora, he was parrying his jabs and catching Fedora's punches. He was moving and missing and bobbing and weaving and not getting hit with a lot of Fedora's punches. He just had this big, effing cut on his head from So I don't know. Obviously, all the big fights he had planned went out the door with the loss. But I still think, in a way, there's a lot of American fighters who see Tszyu in a certain light, called a stepping stone. And I actually think it'll be probably easier for him to get fights. The real question is on the promotion side. Can promoters move Silva, Tszyu out of Australia and into the American market and rebuild his career? If he just stays in Australia, he's going to be the same problem he had the entire time, which is no one's going to know who he is, right? No one's going to know who he is if he stays in Australia. Okay? So you think you would get him to America, rebuild his career, probably kick out his old trainer. I hate saying that. And get a world-class trainer for him. And you just start rebuilding. Look, if Tim wants to be, say, like a Canelo fighter who's really active and fighting all the time, you could rebuild your career like, right, And the thing is, he has such powerful punches to knock anyone out that, 3-4 fights from now where he KOs people again, everyone will be wanting to watch the guy again. So it's not an issue. The real issue is once you start climbing the scallion, is the top talent, going to start basically avoiding you. I don't know. After his loss on Saturday, Lubin said that they were already in talks to fight each other had he won this fight. And now Lubin says, who knows what will happen. Maybe Lubin will still take the fight. I don't know. We'll see. But he said he had already signed a contract to fight Tszyu, assuming he won the fight. But no location had been picked yet. I wonder if he'll still keep the fight and just see if there's going to be any interest. Because I doubt Tszyu will turn that opportunity down now that he's coming off his two back-to-back losses, the only losses in his career, right? They came 2 in a row. It makes me wonder if he'll turn that down. I just, some people just wonder. I think it's just partly money because, Lubin's still trying to make a name for himself too. He's one of those guys climbing that ladder, right? So we'll see. I think there's still a lot of value with Silva. You got the great Hall of Fame father and things like that. But I think he can be very effective in this fight. I mean, I will say, just with my own eyes watching this fight, Tim's punches were faster than the Russian's punches. I mean, when he got inside, whap, right? He got in there, bam! He just let those hands fly. And he was hitting that Russian. But the Russian was just really good, right? He would step away, pop you with a jab, and then bang him with a hook. And he's like he never saw the hook coming. The hook kept hitting him, basically. So, but what I'm saying is just visually with your eyes, you could tell he had the faster hands. And I mean, it was just a tough outing. I think the guy had like a 3 or 4 inch reach advantage on top of that. And yeah, once again, that's not an easy fight, right? You're 3 or 4 inches less of a reach. The guy's got a great jab. And it's not just like this. Like most people who you say, oh, he's got such a beautiful jab, they're not actually using the jab. They might throw the jab 40 times in the entire fight, but this guy's got it moving. It's like a piston, it's constantly working. His punches are in the hundreds by the end of the fight, right? It's totally opposite concept. It's a really good jab with long arms, high volume puncher with big power, with good power, right? That's a hard fight. And but yeah, he had clear hand speed. But like you said, when you're hurt like that and rocked that bad, you can't just push forward like you're Rocky and just start slugging it with the guy who's hurt you, right? You have to wrap up. You have to basically survive the round. That means getting on your bicycle and spinning circles around the ring, whatever. Do it. You gotta let your legs. When you get hit like that, what it is your knees start shaking. You have to. The only way to survive and get through that is to, buy time. Obviously, the better shape you are, the faster you can recover. But that's what you do. You buy time. So anyway, guys, that's basically it as far as sports goes. I mean, you watching football, I take it, but that's the fighting week right there. On another sad note, though, I did hear Bellator announced that the female fighter was from Saturday night was in a prolonged coma. So um, the word prolonged kind of worries me. It makes me think it's not a great thing. And matter of fact, prolonged comas usually lead to death. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if you read in here in a few days that she passes away. Didn't watch that fight. I watched the Nagano fight, but apparently she took a beating, right? So, yeah, that's pretty sad, and obviously keep her in your prayers. But yeah, that's it, guys. Enjoy your Monday. Talk to you later. Bye.